This is my brand. I brand myself as my message. I had this thing called the mobile workplace. And what I did was, rather than read newspaper articles and talk to my friends and family about their work experiences and find solutions to these problems that people have been having. Like I said, I've had my own. I decided to take it out on the road, and this was my tablecloth. I ironed it myself, and it's a little bit weathered, but I would make up a workplace, and I would just be on a street corner, and my friend Steven would videotape me. And we'd just ask random people questions about work and work experiences, and we had a couple of questions, and I got some videos of that, just little snippets, not too much. And I have a parallel world with audiovisual technology I call beforeyoushowit.com. I'm not here to sell my services, but that is a brand I've worked on with people, and they're helping me out. And it's growing into this nice thing. But again, when I hire somebody, they can be a great technician, but if they're not a good people person, I don't call them back. And when I find out sometimes from clients, hey, your guy over here, he was really rude to us. Like, really? Like, it's a surprise to me. I thought he was going to be nice. I'd never call him again. In the freelance world, there is no firing, right? Like, I've been freelance for a long time. There's no firing. So this is a challenge for me. Actually, it's not a challenge for me anymore, but it was. In the freelance world, as you probably know, you just don't get called back. So there's no grievance process, there's no union, you just don't get called back. So you have no choice but to do the best possible job you can. This is one of the video clips that I have, and it's just a sample of the question I was asking people, one thing you can change at work. This was at Queen and Spadina one morning, and I just wanted to hear from random people, just walking by, whoever was willing to, first of all, give me a release so I could show it in public, and second of all, just change one thing at work, what would it be? And this is what they said.
I felt like I was being taken advantage of, so...
Taken advantage of. Yeah, well, a lot of people feel that way, especially when they consider they're working in a menial task like sweeping a floor or cleaning a bathroom or something. Right? They feel like they're low. They feel like they're low lifes and they're not getting paid very well. Well, there are ways to change those attitudes, especially if you have somebody on your staff that is in that position. You can treat them like they're professional. You can treat them a certain way where they don't feel like they're like the lowest rung of the ladder or something like that. I like the grocery store example because I see that a lot. I observe. I don't complain when I'm in the grocery store. I don't complain in my car anymore when I'm driving. I've learned restraint in my car. If somebody does something, stupid, like pulls up to a red light, and then when it turns green, they put on their blinker to turn left. Ever happened to you? A reaction from a lot of people is, well, inevitably road rage, but before it gets to that, it's like honk, honk, you're trying to let them know they did something wrong. I've been practicing for years not letting it get to me because, hey, it's going to happen anyway. All right, so this next one is just a question about life's work, because I think if people understood that they had something to work toward, let's say they're in a position where they really don't like their job, well, what are they working toward? It could be one of those menial labor tasks where they're not very proud of what they do for a living, but there's some way that they could work towards something else, and this has to be impressed upon people. So they can feel like, oh, well, as long as I'm on my way out anyway, I could still do a great job while I'm here. That doesn't happen as much as I'd like it to happen, given the examples from friends and family and my own experience, but I'd like to change a little bit of that.
The question today was, if you could include one thing in your life's work, what would that be? How to take care of your lawful way through eventually living.
Okay, that's his words off the street. I had not heard of Bill 168 until that time, and I decided I was going to look it up because I thought it was quite fascinating, because I have a couple of questions about Bill 168. Now, everybody is quite aware of Bill 168. I read it through a couple of times. I read the highlights as well and went back and forth a few times, read articles online and in the media. Of course, I don't trust the media completely with anything, so I want to go right to the source and actually find the bill. One question about Bill 168. How the heck did we get here? Who's turning a blind eye to this stuff? Why is there workplace violence? We could prevent a lot of that stuff just by treating people differently in the workplace. So I was very surprised and kind of happy at the same time. Like, my workplace is, for the most part, like I said, I had a guy, cut my jacket once with a shipping knife. He was playing with a shipping knife. He thought it was funny. So he sliced my jacket, and I thought, well, that's uncalled for. My first reaction was, I'd really like to strangle this guy. But I had restraints, and I said, that's not the way to go about it, because if I strangle him and there's a fight, then I'm going to look as bad as he. So I just bottled it up, and the manager figured out through my body gestures, what is the problem with you today? And I had to tell him what the problem was. So I just wanted to calm down before I took any action in that situation. But my second question about Bill 168 was, what took it so long? why did this have to wait for so long? Who was working on this? And maybe there's red tape or, paperwork people had to do to push through laws. I understand law can be very difficult. I'm not a lawyer. I understand it can be difficult. But honestly, what took it so long to get here? So, for the organic OS, my concept is you got to start internally. You got to start with the people and their feelings from the leadership perspective, not from the staff, let's say. Let's say you have 25 staff members, 50 staff members, and somebody has a negative reaction to something, or they're just not in a good mood for whatever reason. A lot of things happen to people outside of work. We know that. But maybe they're not to blame, so we'd have to dig deeper and find. Maybe the leaders need reprogramming or something. Maybe we got to start from the source. I call this the well. Let's go here. Let's go to the fountains first, because I didn't want to get ahead of myself. So my question about management maintenance. This is a system that I've developed, and I know it's it might seem kind of fluffy and silly, but it really does make a difference. First of all, I try to approach everything with a Vegas attitude all the time. I've been there a few times. I actually got bored of it the 6th time I was there. Waiting in the airport, it was kind of, for a red-eye flight, it was making me really tired, and I thought, this is not exciting anymore. But every time I approach a project, I have the Vegas attitude as much as I can. Right? It doesn't always happen because I am not a perfect human being, and I do have my down days, and I feel overwhelmed and overworked, and I might have 6 projects going on at the same time. Projects which I started, so I know I got to finish them. Prioritizing is one of my weaknesses, but I've been working on that and getting better. So if I'm not in the Vegas state of mind, I sometimes feel like Front Street, which is okay. It's a fountain. It's nice to look at, but it's not quite the grandeur of the Bellagio with the music and the light show and all the big displays. So sometimes I'm in the Front Street. Very rare, or actually never anymore. When I was coming out of college, I was actually quite pumped to take over the world. And then I went through, the spin cycle of society for a while, and I got all tired of that, and I started to develop a toilet fountain attitude, and that went away after a few years when I just got back on my feet and said, this is the kind of attitude that I've been dealing with other people in workplace for many years, and I just kind of got tired of it. Some people even get worse. Some people are like this. That's not the type of fountain. But basically, if you go back and you're a leader at work, what are people seeing? What kind of display are you giving them? Because they feed off of that. We know that. So they see you and they can read you. And everybody understands that a good percentage of our communication is body language. I read a book on it just because, because I have a lot of books on various topics I like to read. But I was very fascinated by body language and how you can just read someone's gesture clusters. It's not just one gesture, but it's a cluster of gestures that you can read and go, I'm pretty sure I know how you're feeling today, right? So I think it's harder for people in positions of authority, especially in my case, I pay people to do work for me. And I pick them up in the morning and stuff like that. And maybe I'm tired because I've got 4 hours sleep over a stretch of 3 or 4 days. But I have to remember, before I pick them up, I got to put on that Vegas fountain attitude again. Because I got to get them pumped up. I want to make them feel like they're going to have a good time today, as opposed to, I'm in a grumpy mood because they didn't get enough sleep. That's kind of my problem. So it's harder for leaders to get into that state of mind. But it is part of the management maintenance, right? So just avoid the toilet scenario. Cars. I already mentioned the cars, right? Learning to drive. I love this picture of this kid. Developing road rage. Where does he learn that? Maybe from parents and adults who everybody freaks out in the traffic, right? If you commute from Whitby or St. Catharines or wherever, if you commute and you're on the 401, it's one of the worst highways I've ever seen. And I've been to a few American cities where, although it was busy, it just seemed to move better. I don't know what's going on with the 401. But if you commute every day, wouldn't you expect that you're going to hit traffic? What's the point of getting upset about it, right? So showing restraint is a very difficult thing. So the next time I ask you, try this out. Just try it, when you're in your car. A short beep will do for most people. Don't lay into the horn. Does anybody lay into the horn? Nobody? Oh, the averages aren't okay. Okay, you admit you lay into the horn. You used to lay into the horn? Okay, yeah, and I just a little beep, a little courteous beep, because what do we have to communicate in cars with? You don't see the other person. You have a horn, you have your blinkers, and I guess your brake pedal and whatever. Those are communication things. But people read people wrong all the time, which is why road rage occurs. I was on my bike. I drive my bike all over the city. I actually commute downtown. I didn't ride it today because I spent a lot of money on this jacket, so I didn't want to ride my bike. But I try to block out the honking as much as possible. A couple of years ago, I let it get to me. And I heard this guy in a van honking at me. You know, when you're on a bike, people are honking at you to get out of the way. And, like, let's share the road, people. But it doesn't always work out that well. So I'm riding my bike. I hear this guy honk, and I just had enough people honking at me that day. I turned around and I looked. It was my best friend. I didn't give him the benefit of the doubt. I just thought, somebody's really angry with me. And I said, oh, no, maybe he's not. So we misread these things all the time. So if someone is a new driver and they hear someone honking and they're turning around a busy intersection, you don't know if they're a new driver. You don't know what's going on in that car. They could be playing with their iPod or radio. You have no idea what's going on. But we don't give them the benefit of the doubt. We think they're doing something stupid. It's kind of not fair. Because we never know, we shouldn't just assume that they're doing something stupid. Sometimes people do stupid things on purpose. If you honk at them really loudly, honestly, do you think they're going to move? Or do you think they're going to make a point where I don't have to listen to you? This is nonverbal communication coming from automobiles. If you don't have a car and you want to give yourself a similar test, do what I do. The Vista test. Anybody work with Windows Vista and try to be productive? Very frustrating. You know, but again, don't blame the hardware. The hardware is like, my computer's fine. If it had a different operating system in it, it would be better. So I get frustrated. Well, yeah, I'm on my way to do something and I have to get this, school lecture finished on my computer and it's just not working. Okay, take a deep breath and go, well, I have to accept that. I would honestly have to have a plan B for that. So I always have a plan B and I have a plan C for things. If something doesn't work out, I'm not relying on technology. First of all, I've learned not to trust it. I'm surprised computers fly planes. I get really nervous when the pilot says, oh, I got to find a password to fly this plane. You got to find the password then. Do whatever you got to do, right? So give yourself the Vista test. Don't freak out on your computer. Has anyone ever done that? Freaked out on your computer and wanted to smash it? Wanted to throw it out a window? Try not to. So I'm not going to go over all these stories very long. They're just little samples from working life from various different occupations. So the nurse's saga. The nurse is 18 years a floor nurse, and she is studying to go into the OR because she wants more regular hours, and she's got, 2 teenagers and one that's just about to be a teenager. She's working on a divorce or a separation. She's in debt up to her eyeballs, took a second mortgage, like a lot of negative things going on in her life. So she says, I want to better my life. I want to study to be a operating room nurse. And she didn't know the rules, but when you're an operating room nurse, when you're a trainee or a student, you're not allowed to be left alone in the room. Well, she didn't know that. So also, nobody's supposed to leave the room. So there's 2 problems here. What happened was that the surgeon took a biopsy. Someone was supposed to run it down to the lab. And the person that was supposed to just stepped outside of the room. They left her alone. And she's like, well, I got this specimen, but I can't leave the room. I know that much, right? And then they told her later, well, we're not supposed to leave you in the room alone anyway, but nobody told her that. They did. They broke the rules. Somebody broke the rules. She had no idea. Surgeon comes back. The other nurse comes back. She says, oh, you didn't take that specimen down? It's my sister, I got to tell you. She was horrified. She was like, oh, no. And the surgeon just bawled her out. From that day on, she was marked. She was marked by the bully club, and there's a bully club in this particular hospital. And they followed her around with a notepad and pen, watched everything she did. They bullied her. Her friends kept saying, why don't you quit? She goes, no, because I'm right. I don't want to let them get to me. So I'm refusing to let them get to me. Meanwhile, all this bad stuff is happening around her life, and then she's got to deal with this. So she's got to show up to work, and she knows she's looked down upon now. So she's not having a good time. She shows up in an operating room. The surgeon says, I'm not working with this person. They leave. Cancel my cases for the day. Oh, what's going on? My question is, if the surgeon, I mean, they're dealing with human lives. He could have freaked out. I understand that because it's a high-pressure situation. But could somebody have asked the question, how did this happen? As opposed to putting 2 years of grief in someone's life and then an eventual court case and the hospital losing the case. Lawyers' fees, grievance process, whatever. She was glad she had a union at that point, but was that necessary when somebody could have just said, how did this happen? And when they found out how it happened, she wouldn't have been bullied for those 2 years, she wouldn't have had to go to court. She wouldn't have had that extra stress. And you know, stress kills people. So I want to believe that we can minimize stress to, you know, save our lives. So when it's not necessary. T-shirt temps is a simple story of a best friend and his wife. She was working for a nonprofit organization, and they had a bunch of T-shirts. Well, all these volunteers were helping out over a period of 3 days for a live event, and they were going to save a bunch of T-shirts for the staff. Well, when they ran out of T-shirts, when they were giving them away, the manager says, "Oh, let's give those T-shirts away because we ran out." And she said, "But they're for the staff." And he said, "Screw the staff." And she's like, "Well, that's not right. You can't just say that. You promised them something. They're volunteers, for God's sake. Give them a T-shirt." So he ended up giving them the T-shirts, and he felt bad. But the morale just plummeted at that point. They're like, we've been working for you for 3 days, and this is how you treat us? And you're not paying us? The burger bun incident. Okay, so I was a teenager working at McDonald's, and I overcooked the Big Mac crowns. I was like 17 or something. And the manager saw this, and she's wrapping all the burgers, and nobody wanted to work with this person. So she saw that they were a little overcooked. I made a judgment call. They weren't that bad. You would have eaten them. They look pretty good. They're just a little too caramelized, I guess. So she picks them up, and one by one, she throws them at me, and they bounce off my chest. Full restaurant of people waiting to get served, and they're watching this. I'm red as a beet going, I could just walk off the job. But no, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to stand here. I'm going to turn red. The redness is going to go away. And I'll deal with her later by obviously taking this up with somebody in a higher position. Because that's not right. Belittlement is one thing that I cannot stand. I can't stand people doing that on the job. The shipping knife incident, I told you about it. The bully managers, I did have somebody physically abuse me by pushing me, saying your services, this is a freelancer, right? Your services are no longer required. So he has the right to push me in the chest. And of course, the security guy is standing there, and I said, "Did you just see that?" And he goes, "I didn't see anything." I'm like, "Well, of course you did." So I saw a couple of lawyers about it. Turned out punitive damages would have been about $3,000, which would have been the lawyer's fee. So I said, "Why don't we just let karma take over?" Place closed down within 2 years, and I was dancing on the street. So sometimes I would like to believe karma works in those cases, but that's a negative attitude as well. Everywhere. I won't go through the trouble on the film set, but you could see what's happening here. This is just one guy with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 incidences, and I couldn't fill 5 to 10, 50. I could fill that many pages, but not on this PowerPoint presentation. This is what's happening in the life of one person. So imagine how much, well, you probably already know how much this happens on a daily basis. And these are the different areas where the different work environments. So union, non-union, mixture of union and non-union. Of course, nightclub/restaurant, in this case, was non-union, and professional film set union. So it didn't really matter if it was union or not union. It was just the people and their behavior. So the outside looking in, we had, I mentioned the music store, and for a reason, because there was a guy named Ben, and Ben used to come into the music store all the time. And he wasn't he didn't appear to be the brightest guy in the world. People made fun of him. But then as you worked there, you kind of felt sorry for him. And he came to the front one day, and he used to go, "Hey guys, how's it going?" And we just kind of thought he was on some sort of disability or something, so we just played along with Ben. "We're working here, Ben, but we'll let you come in." He comes up to the manager and one of the lifers working in the recording department. He goes, "Hey guys, how's it going?" And my manager said to him, "Hey Ben, you know, you're here so often. Why don't you just get a job?" And he goes, "Nah, the money's no good. Besides, I don't like to be taken advantage of." And they went, okay. So outside looking, and that's my point. Yeah, you have to be able to look inside your organization to see these faults. And I can't go on because I got 1 minute left. And the last thing I wanted to do really quickly, I will have this PowerPoint. It's available because there's a bunch of stuff in here. I just didn't want to print it because there's a lot of pictures. The rubber chicken principle, I'll leave you with that. Just imagine yourself with a rubber chicken in your pocket. If you do that every day, you're going to put a smile on your face. I mean, just try to say the word rubber chicken and not laugh. So if you're in a bad mood and you start your workday, just maybe start with that, and that should put like at least a little bit of humor or a little bit of glow in your day. And I think that's all I have. I do have this worksheet here. I want us to go over it, but it's in the binder. And just for honesty's sake, get someone to do this for you, someone who knows you well, or do it yourself. And just fill these things out, and it's pretty straightforward. I did one myself, and I'm not a 10 on, I graded myself. I'm not a 10 on any one of the, or I wasn't a 10. I'm a 10 on a few, but there's a few I'm still not a 10 on. So for me, it's an ongoing process as well. Thank you very much, and thank you for putting this thing on, because I think everybody's messages today and tomorrow have to get through.